86.
Yes.
Yes.
The paragraph, we finished the paragraph that begins with the gypsy, he thought.
The gypsy.
Yes.
Claudia, this is chapter 22. The paragraph that we read started with the gypsy, he thought.
It's almost the end. It's like 2 pages
No.
before the end. 2.5. I mean,
Yes.
2 pages. Yes, I mean, the 2 sides.
Yes.
Yeah, because in Spanish we say, how do you say carilla? Page.
Yes, page.
And
The gypsy, he
hoja,
Esa
Yes.
es acá,
Hoja?
la encontré.
It's
Page,
the
the
same because
same. We
page
say-
is the same.
Yeah.
Yes. So the gypsy, he thought, well, this is what Robert Jordan was thinking about the gypsy, because remember that the gypsy was not at his post. He went
Yes.
to catch 2 hares. Oh, Claudia disappeared. He went to catch 2 hares, and well, that's why he couldn't see the man who came by horse, the horseman, the cavalry, and Robert Jordan had to kill him, had to shoot him. Yes.
Mhm.
So Robert is angry at the gypsy, but at the same time, he says he cannot be angry because it's a gypsy. No,
Mhm.
he's a
Good for
gypsy.
nothing.
Claro,
Good for nothing.
good
Yes.
for nothing. So then after that, they gave the hares to Pilar to make the stew. The women were going to cook, and Agustin and Primitivo appeared. They prepared the automatic rifle, and they prepared something to cover the rifle for the planes not to see them. Yes, and they started to, in a way, guarding the place, because they imagined that after this man who Robert Jordan killed, there could be more, which of course will happen, no? So then they say, well, some paragraphs later, practically 2 pages later, they say, but with this of the bridge, we can take Segovia. Because they are discussing the question of blowing the bridge or not blowing the bridge, yes, and that they will have to fight, but the answer is, que va, nothing. Every fascist dead is a fascist less. Found it?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but with this of the bridge, we can take Segovia. But later says, thou believest in this seriously, that we can take Segovia? Yes, it is possible with the bridge blown correctly. I would like to have the massacre here and the bridge too. Thou hast much appetite, Robert Jordan told him. Yes, because Agustin and Primitivo, they want to kill the fascists. They want to fight. All this time he had been watching the crows, because remember that Robert had these birds nearby watching them, because if they fly, it's because the cavalry is coming.
It's coming. Mm.
So he had been watching the crows, and now he saw one was watching something. The bird cawed and flew up, but the other crow still stayed in the tree. Robert Jordan looked up toward Primitivo's place high in the rocks. He saw him watching out over the country below, but he made no signal. Robert Jordan leaned forward and worked the lock on the automatic rifle, saw the round in the chamber and let the lock down. The crow was still there in the tree. The others circled wide over the snow and then settled again. In the sun and the warm wind, the snow was falling from the laden branches of the pines. I have a massacre for thee for tomorrow morning, Robert Jordan said. It is necessary to exterminate the post at the sawmill. I am ready, Agustin said. Estoy listo. Also the post at the road mender's hut below the bridge. For the one or for the other, or for both? Not for both. They will be done at the same time. Then for either one, Agustin said, now for a long time have I wished for action in this war. Pablo has rotted us here with inaction. So you see, Agustin is ready to fight. They have to blow the bridge and they have to exterminate, as Robert says, the two posts, the one in the bridge and the one near the bridge, yes? And if you remember, we read about the men who were in that post. You remember they were talking about the weather and they were saying that how different this weather was from their own land. So in a way, we feel pity for them because we know that they are young soldiers, that they are there because they are obliged to be there. And
and Anselmo was there looking at them, and he felt that they could be friends if they hadn't been at war.
Exactly. Yes. So now that Robert says that they had to exterminate this post, we imagine these young soldiers there, no? That that we know that they are going to be killed. At the end of that chapter, it says, as Robert Jordan looked, he saw the crowd fly up. He flew straight away through the trees without cawing. So, danger. This is the sign of danger. The bird flying away, yes? And now, when we start chapter 23, we know that the action starts. I think I sent you yesterday the creation of tension in Hemingway's writing. Yes, which is very clearly seen in this chapter, no? How tension increases by the use of short words, repetition, etc., no? So chapter 23, Robert says, get thee down. He whispered to Agustin, and he turned his head. Wait a second. He turned his head and flicked his hand down to Anselmo, who was coming through the gap with a pine tree, carrying it over his shoulder like a Christmas tree. He saw the old man drop his pine tree behind a rock, and then he was out of sight in the rocks. And Robert Jordan was looking ahead across the open space toward the timber. He saw nothing and heard nothing, but he could feel his heart pounding, and then he heard the clack of stone on stone, and the leaping, dropping, clicks of a small rock falling. So you see how the increase of tension, no? The movement of the action. He turned his head to the right and looking up saw Primitivo's rifle raised and lowered 4 times horizontally. You remember that Primitivo had certain signs, no, with the rifle to show that somebody was coming. Then there was nothing more to see but the wide stretch in front of him with the circle of horse tracks and the timber beyond. Cavalry, he said softly to Agustin. So now the men, the enemies, are coming. Agustin looked at him and his dark sunken cheeks widened at their base as he grinned. Robert Jordan noticed he was sweating. He reached over and put his hand on his shoulder. His hand was still there as they saw the 4 horsemen ride out of the timber, and he felt the muscles in Agustin's back twitch under his hand. 1 horseman was ahead and 3 rode behind. The one ahead was following the horse tracks. I don't know if you remember that the tracks that the horses have left are in a way are going in direction of El Sordo's cave, because El Sordo moved the horses, and so they are following the tracks, no? So they were all watching carefully. Robert Jordan felt his heart beating against the snowy ground as he lay, his elbows spread wide, and watched them over the sights of the automatic rifle. The man who was leading rode along the trail to where Pablo had circled and stopped. Because this is what Pablo did. Pablo also went with the horse of the man Robert killed, to make a circle, to confuse, let's say, the cavalry, no? The others rode up to him and they all stopped. Robert Jordan saw them clearly over the blued steel barrel of the automatic rifle. He saw the faces of the men, the sabers hanging, the sweat-darkened flanks of the horses, and the cone-like slope of the khaki capes, and the Navarrese slant of the khaki berets. The leader turned his horse directly toward the opening in the rocks where the gun was placed. So imagine, he could see the man looking at him. Yes. And Robert Jordan saw his young, sun and wind-darkened face, his close-set eyes, hawk nose, and the overlong wedge-shaped chin. Sitting his horse there, the horse's chest toward Robert Jordan, the horse's head high, the butt of the light automatic rifle projecting forward from the scabbard at the right of the saddle. The leader pointed toward the opening where the gun was. So, they are approaching, no? They are approaching. Skip one paragraph, and it says, you hardly ever see them at such range, he thought. So you see how now we change the narrator again. In the previous paragraphs, it was the narrator, the omniscient narrator, and now we have Robert, no? You hardly ever see them at such range, because he is looking at them through the eye of the weapon, and he could see them very clearly and very near. Not along the barrel of one of these do you see them like this. So he is there ready to shoot. Then in the next paragraph, thou, he thought, looking at the wedge of front sight placed now firm in the slot of the rear sight, the top of the wedge against the center of the leader's chest. He's pointing at the enemy's chest directly. A little to the right of the scarlet device that showed bright in the morning sun against the khaki tail. Thou, he thought, thinking in Spanish now, and pressing his fingers forward against the trigger, guard to keep it away from where it would bring the quick, shocking, hurtling rush from the automatic rifle. Thou, he thought again, thou art dead now in thy youth. No, so this is what he is thinking before shooting. And thou, he thought, and thou, because remember that there are three. So he's looking at them and he says, okay, you are dead. But let it not happen. Do not let it happen. So, again, the creation of tension is with, due to these short sentences. You are dead, thou and thou, but don't let this happen, no? Very, very short and cropped up sentences. He felt Agustin beside him start to cough. Felt him hold it, choke and swallow. Then, as he looked along the oiled blue of the barrel out through the opening between the branches, his fingers still pressed forward against the trigger guard, he saw the leader turned his horse. So this leader never imagined that he was practically dead. For a second, he wasn't dead. I'm pointing to the timber where Pablo's trail led. The four of them trotted into the timber, and Agustin said softly, cabrones. So Agustin wanted to kill them, yes, but Robert knew that it wasn't safe because he's thinking of the breach.
Of the consequences, right?
So they disappeared, no? They go up on the hill. They climbed. After Agustin says, we could have killed all four. He was still wet with sweat. Yes, Robert Jordan whispered, but with the firing, who knows what might have come. Just then he heard the noise of another rock falling, and he looked around quickly. But both the gypsy and Anselmo were out of sight. He looked at his wristwatch and then up to where Primitivo was raising and lowering his rifle in what seemed an infinity of short jerks. Pablo has 45 minutes start, Robert Jordan thought, and then he heard the noise of a body of cavalry coming. So now, at the beginning there were four, the leader and three, but now the whole cavalry is coming. No te apures, he whispered to Agustin. Do not worry, they will pass as the other. They came into sight, trotting along the edge of the timber in columns of twos, 20 mounted men. So imagine if they had shot the first three, no? That would have been a disaster.
Mhm.
When this Zoom finishes, we go again to the same link immediately.
Okay.
Okay, so 20 mounted men, armed and uniformed as the others had been, their sabers swinging, their carbines in their holsters, and then they went down into the timber as the others had. "Tu ves," Robert Jordan said to Agustin, "thou seest, there were many. These would we have had to deal with if we had destroyed the others." So you see, Robert is showing Agustin that his decision was right, no? Some lines later, he says, "This has stood scrutiny well, and it would be dangerous to plant trees now because those people will return and perhaps they are not stupid." Yes, so this is because Anselmo is bringing more branches to make the appearance of trees, and Robert says no more, because they will discover that there are
No,
more.
there are more. Yes.
He felt the need to talk that with him was the sign that there had just been much danger. So after danger passes, Robert feels the necessity, yes, of talking. He could always tell how bad it had been by the strength of the desire to talk that came after. "It was a good blind, he said. "Good," said Agustin. "To obscenity with all fascism, good. We could have killed the four of them. Didst thou see? I saw." So Agustin insists, no, that they could have killed the four of them. Then later on,